62 civs on the largest map ever made and a record 400 cities conquered. How will I do it? Well, this is Alexander, a raging homosexual whose lust for men is only matched by his lust for combat, and he wants a second chance to conquer the world. But is he prepared for such a challenge after failing the first time? The rules are simple. He'll have only 250 turns to conquer the entire world by any means necessary. Why 250? We'll get into that a little later, but to put that into perspective, I have to conquer hundreds of cities in the time it would take the average player to win a standard game of Civilization 6. How will he deal with such an awful start? Will he be able to break through the Bosphorus bottleneck? And can he beat back the massive coalition late game? Tough times ahead, huh? Want a drink? No, what? I hate alcohol. He's ready. So smash that like button like you were a Greek philosopher who saw a young boy unattended, and let's sit back and watch his journey together. Immediately we are beset with the problem. Where do we settle our capital? Without any rivers, our growth will be limited, but there is something more important than that. Settling our capital north of our start as we secure the most amount of hills, meaning the most potential sources of iron possible. Look at this magnificent city, the start of an empire. So we're sleeping in hammocks. When do we nuke the Chinese? A humble start for Alexander the Unknown, yet we still have a whole world left to conquer. With his two most trusted generals, each on opposite ends of the Nuremberg scale to help him out, he'll be able to confidently brave the unknown. But who would he be dealing with throughout this campaign? Theodora, the stripper turned empress in control of the critical Bosphorus. Matthias in possession of the most powerful city in Europe in Budapest. Faraxis's Roman Julius Caesar in control of the Italian peninsula terrain that will prove particularly challenging to handle. And finally, our biggest problem, the Ottomans residing in Anatolia. But as tough as they seem, in control of Macedon is the warlike Alexander, who could solo all of them while having another wet dream about Bucephalus. How? Well, his 4 unique abilities, like his preferences, are built for constant nuts-to-butts conquest. And with his capital, he controls about 0.01% of the world's landmass. He has a long way to go. But before any sort of conquest can get started, we need an army. And not just any army. The first of Alexander's abilities is the Hypaspist unique unit. We'll get into that later, but for now, there are war preparations that need to be made. The most important thing is to acquire a second city. The reason for that is simple. The more people we can exploit in substandard working conditions, the quicker we can employ the Hypaspist and 2 key supporting civics. But you see, the problem is that the Balkans are in a constant state of dry gunpowder storage maintained daily by Spencer Shea. And so the only area available to settle is Greece, but just as we begin plotting out the settlement... Hey, can you just move your settler? Oh shit! What? I don't have a gun. The Romans are furious that we were born into terrain that they want to conquer and immediately launch themselves against the walls of Dubrovnik. With their relentless assaults against our city that sounds like a railroad magnate in the 1800s, it almost fell. But while it seemed like all hope was lost, the garrisons ride out in a daring counterattack. But despite this battlefield success, the problem still remains that Macedon needs a second settlement. But where do we find one? Down south maybe, but it's already occupied. However, thanks to their crimes of putting milk in before their cereal, no one would complain if we took them as slaves. A simple task. These weak souls wouldn't even fill a lesser soul gem in Skyrim. We'll call it Alexandria. Yes, sir. If you do that, I'll kill you. Despite that success, we now control even less of the world's landmass, as other civs have at least 3 to 4 cities now, and we are beginning to fall behind due to the constant stream of Roman soldiers requiring our attention. All the while, a titan from the east, like Alexander in the men's shower room, was rising. One that we'd need to take care of before the sheer weight of his yields make that task impractical. But with the Romans refusing peace and blocking off all our iron mines, how do we proceed? I don't know about you, but I'd personally pass a glacier-sized kidney before restarting this map for a 3rd time. What? Who told you to return home? The general did. Who? But even with the professional ball miner losing her capital, we are still in no position to fight. However, all that's about to change through our military buildup. Using the iron, we can now build our unique unit, the Hypaspist. With extra combat strength for each adjacent unit, we now only need to research military tradition to unlock said flanking bonus. But most importantly, it's the bonus to attacking cities that will help us out tremendously. While the troops train, we construct a fort to overlook the Seaman Demon's borders, allowing us to construct the unique Basilikoi Paides building to train more troops.
Look at these queer ass niggas, man.
Finally, we're ready. With such a massive military, Alexander's preparations are complete, and thanks to his patience, we now possess one of the most disciplined fighting forces on the planet. And theory. A theory that's about to be put to the test.
We finna get up in here, whoop these niggas' ass right quick.
Theodora, I have some demand. Show will run you 300. No thanks. I'm gay. After hitting her primitive warriors harder than crack in a black neighborhood, they reached the gates of her new capital as the Macedonians were met with a unique problem. With her galley, there was no way to surround the city that was rocking an impressive 30 combat strength. He has no navy? Is he stupid? He'll never take the city. When the man in front of you dies, the next one climbs on top of his corpse. After the revolutionary use of the more men than they have bullets strategy, there were more resources at the Macedonians' disposal that they traded away to fund their ever-growing military. With her forces smashed, there was nothing stopping Macedon from taking the rest of Theo's young empire. Holy shit, her forces are smashed! There's nothing stopping us from taking the rest of Theo's young empire. Move, move, move. It was a race to the Iron Curtain, and due to their first mover's advantage, the Macedonians were easily able to secure Bucharest. But Galati was a different story. With both Ottoman and Macedonian forces moving on the city, it was anybody's game. And that game was won by Macedon. With her empire falling, Theodora, well, it seems she thinks she's the Riddler in her newfound state of psychosis. But enough of that. Our first success, leaving us in a state better than turning to the cool side of your pillow at night. Due to shrewd planning and most importantly patience, we were able to take her out, but there were some who weren't content with the speed of advance. Come on, let's go after Suleiman. I know, we have plenty of time. In fact, it may have been time to test out new domination methods, like a diplomatic marriage to someone whose chair could be lit ablaze and I'd still get back up looking like Harvey Dent. A failure on all fronts. But after all of that, the Macedonians still only controlled less than 0.1% of the world's landmass. But there was hope, as a new form of governance may just give them the shot to the arms their troops need. We gave our Hypaspists meth. But what are drugs without drug dealers? And for the Macedonians' classical era army, there was only one that was remaining. Sun Tzu, author of The Art of War that contains many insightful tactics that are still studied intently by modern-day generals and Hearts of Iron 4 players alike. But for Macedon, there were more pressing things to worry about. I guess people really like Theodora. Hey, wait a minute. Suleiman, you literally took Istanbul. Make sure to deceive the enemy, you say. Oh my god, that's brilliant. And I think you want to fight? Oh no, I'd never beat you. Cool. Let's go east and kill all those Armenians that don't exist but deserve it. Due to the anger he felt at losing Sun Tzu, his Pookie Bear, a few turns later, Alexander launched his invasion of Anatolia. But the problem is the Bosphorus choke point. If they fortify the city, which they will with Sun Tzu, his Pookie Bear at the helm, then it will prove a fortress untakeable and ruin the challenge. Suleiman knows that and his troops holding the line, so how do we deal with them? By using our ranged archers, of course, right on top of the nearby hills with perfect sight of the flat kill zone outside Istanbul, which was taken shortly thereafter. Forced into a retreating action back to their capital, you would think the rest of their empire would collapse like slave owners in 1865. But no, not with that giant natural wonder blocking off their administrative capital. But there is one way they could take it. By pincering the capital from two sides, they could flank and destroy, but in order to do that, they would have to take Bodrum Bodrum. And with no walls, the Schlieffen plan would surely be a piece of cake. And it was as they began assaulting the cell. Oh my god, walls showed up out of nowhere. We were deceived. Run! With this disaster at Bodrum, peace was forcibly established as there was no way their army had the numbers or strength to assault such a fortress. And with that, the Macedonians were stuck. Only controlling about 0.2% of the world's landmass, they were facing the wall known as Suleiman the Magnificent, with his massive technological prowess. In order to take down this titan, the Macedonians need advancements of their own. But in the meantime, we're introduced to the third of their unique abilities. Another unique unit even more powerful than the Hypaspist, the Hittyroi, a strong cavalry unit with a free promotion and great general farming ability. But they can't be used against Suleiman due to the peace deal, so the only logical move was to test them in the opposite direction. The Macedonians decided to split their forces in two, with one army, the second army, moving to besiege Budapest. The issue was the lowland plains around the city combined with strong siege units on defensible terrain that left our troops sitting ducks. And that is where the Hittyroi come in. These heavy shock cavalry take catapults back out to the woodshed every day of the week, holding the line long enough for the Hypaspists to breach the walls as Budapest is secured. A massive city that increases the yields for new advancements substantially, giving Macedon the ability to improve their heavy infantry. But the real battle was about to get started to the south of Anatolia. Climb on top of corpses again? No. I have a plan. With advanced weaponry, Suleiman the Great's army is only pretty good. However, the fortress of Bodrum is still near impenetrable even with men-at-arms. So how do we scale the walls? By cycling out units that need promoting to take time to heal and allow fresh bodies to deal full damage and gain experience. A benefit that will prove instrumental to the first army later on. God, that was brilliant, sir. Thank you. And your junk is so big, of course. My Pookie Bear. But as the glazing reached refluxical levels, the Hungarians to the north were on the move as they amassed the rest of their armies in an effort to take back the jewel of the Danube. But before that, the Macedonians were advancing on the beast known as Ankara, stronghold of Suleiman the All-Right, who's gripping onto his capital like a retarded kid when you try to take away his Legos. The siege was a slugfest, with neither side ceding ground. The Macedonians and their advanced armies found it difficult to deal with Ankara's massive strength. And to make matters worse, the Ottomans copied our tactics. Actually, I got that from Poland. But with everyone on the verge of exhaustion, we need all our units for a final assault. If we lose one, then the siege is over for the second time in 20 turns. And so, there's only one option. She thinks Drake won the beef. 13-2. Right there, near Ankara. And with that minor sacrifice, Suleiman the not very good lost his last stronghold. However, this near disaster proved to Macedon that they probably need to upgrade their weaponry, and not just by making stronger steel. But would they have the resources to carry out such reforms? For now, the troop quality proved adequate in Europe, where the Second Battle of Hungary was trivial due to Matthias overlooking one simple factor. Open plains, district defenses, single file advance. The guards at Auschwitz had a more difficult time. And with both armies sapped of their strength, we take the remaining settlements without much of a fight. The Macedonian Empire has come far, stretching from the entirety of the Balkans all the way into the plurality of Anatolia. This speed of advance was unprecedented, as they now control 3.5% of the world's landmass. But Alexander, wasn't as happy as you would think. Let's leave Hungary and Suleiman. They pose no threat to us. I need it! The niter, that is. We have almost none. Go get him, General. Come here, China! The Macedonians were in a bit of a predicament as their steel was turning more obsolete by the turn. But with no gunpowder, they couldn't afford to upgrade their outdated army, and so, at the massive risk of getting bombed from the skies, they invade the one area of the map where niter is said to be plentiful. The Babylonian forces were caught more unprepared than the natives when Columbus gave them his blanket thanks to their new generals' forced march tactics. However, the city of Mosul is much better defended and possesses the niter they so desperately need. Up near the Alps of Italy, the general ran into a different problem, one that would haunt the Macedonians for years to come. The last bastion of Hungary in northern Italy is a perfect choke point, and just trying to position their forces would cost the Second Army dearly. Why do I hear boss music? With the full heal from the Terracotta Army, Macedon moves in on Hungary and Mosul. While their ranged defenses were formidable, with the extra strength and heal, we were able to conquer the last remnants of both civilizations, securing their long-sought-after niter. Down, dog, we have the niter! But this war was far from over. The Peninsular Campaign still had one civilization in the way, an old enemy led by Caesar, and with Italy's rugged terrain, this was looking to be a slog. But the real threat came from the deserts of Arabia, where they led the world in technological development. How would Alexander deal with the fact that every advantage he had from the start was about to be flipped against him? While we wait for the gold to upgrade our forces, we decide to secure the eastern Mediterranean ports against Dido. The problem is, with her massive military, even she doesn't think we're a threat. But despite her strength, she isn't as strong as you would think, and the reason for that is it's all boats. And with our newest upgrades, we made Blood and Dookie run down her unit's legs. We can work something out, right? Taking her capital was easy, but our lack of a naval presence was about to come back and bite us on multiple fronts. Empowering the merchants' guilds in exchange for them aiding our military upgrades was a shrewd decision, but one that would take time to materialize. All the while, Dido, with command of the sea, bombarded and retook her capital. But that would pale in comparison to what no naval forces did to us in Rome. Hey, what are you doing across the Rubicon? Rome had a large standing army, and combined with the natural choke point of Italy, slowed the advance to a crawl. Without blocking off the sea, they could send in supplies, but despite all that, with our tech advantage and our new cannonballs running through his defenses like Tomb Raider, we won this siege and stormed their capital. Woohoo, we conquered Jerusalem, right? Shut up! Carthage is stealing your mother and there's nothing we can do about it. Eventually, with no way of resupplying her troops being banished to the south of Arabia, Macedon is able to stabilize the situation, but one thing was certain: Macedon needed a navy. The source of all the problems that slowed down the Macedonians considerably and wasted time. Time Saladin was using to surpass the Macedonians in technology. With muskets of his own, he fielded parity with the Macedonian Empire, which spurred Alexander to attack now before he gets smart to our plans. Because if he fortifies and locks us off Africa, Asia, and thus our plans for world domination, well, we can't have that now, can we? But with another forced march, the quick speed of the Macedonians caught Arabia by surprise as the Persian Gulf was taken before he could muster a response. With such a success, there were no celebrations to come, as the offensives had stalled, and now Macedon had to trek across the scorching Arabian desert to fight an army similar or even stronger than their own. Meanwhile, on the European front, peace was forcefully established as there was no way to continue on land. With massive successes in Rome, Arabia, the Balkans, and Anatolia, their leader could finally claim the title of Alexander the All-Right, taking about 2% of the Earth's total landmass. And one thing was for certain: the land army had taken them far, but it was as far as it could take them. But to ensure we can speed up our conquests, we first have to deal with Arabia to build a navy on the other side of the Suez. But with open terrain and parity in tech, they had the advantage when you factor in stronger walls on their defensive. This turn of events led to our troops taking heavy losses, and many others were left on the verge of routing. So how did we overcome such odds? With superior tactics, flanking other units under the leadership of our great general finally taking the city of Baryta, giving us an axis to attack all three of the remaining cities. But which one would the Macedonian Empire strike first? I wonder what the general has planned for us now that we're finally at peace. Yeah, haven't had a break in thousands of years. Can't wait to go home and fuck your wife. Move, move, move! We're crossing those mountains by tonight! In a reverse Hannibal maneuver, the Second Army crosses the Alps to deal with the Gallic Empire, leaving Caesar's realm until a navy was constructed. But this was going to be a monumental undertaking. At war with half the world in the first coalition, to make matters worse, the rugged terrain caused heavy casualties, and just as it looked like they would suffer the same fate as that previous general, our fourth and most important ability came into play. Whenever you take a city that possesses versus a world wonder like Jebel Barka, for instance. All units around the world restore their health completely, and with that, Lyon was surrounded by fresh forces, but now the real challenge has begun. Could Macedon take Lyon as a bridgehead before attrition took root? The siege was grueling against so many units and defenses, and at the risk of losing, there was only one thing to do: the nuclear option. Good news, slaves, you're free now. I can finally see my kids again. Here, take these horses and ride that away. Take whatever supplies you come across, even if you have to shank a few locals on the way. A potent distraction as Lyon was finally taken. With the rest of France lying open, this was the decisive Battle of Lyon, where the coalition had one last opportunity to stop Alexander's forces. But in the meantime, let's go watch the test run of the first of many frigates. Oh yeah, this'll work. With the rest of the navy finished construction, it was time for the Arabian front to be mopped up. The capital was easy to take as we advanced on Carthage's Red Sea ports, but after making peace with Saladin, we gave him back the Suez city. Well, despite this contradiction, this would prove imperative to taking Europe later. With the navy built, they moved to secure the Suez from the nation of Egypt, but while they positioned their forces, the Battle of Lyon was currently raging, and a brutal one at that. Thanks to fortifications and making peace with Spain, this battle was won shortly after as a new opportunity arose. If we take Toulouse, we wouldn't need to worry about a southern front, allowing us to focus the bulk of our military on sweeping through the plains of France. But with such a massive undertaking in what might as well be a fortress, we can't afford to get bogged down. So new line tactics and bright-colored uniforms were distributed. Toulouse didn't stand a chance, and we didn't even have to climb on top of corpses to do it. And with all of that, our fleet was finally ready for its first official run. In position to wipe out 3 peninsulas at the same time, the Navy doesn't waste any time and moves in on the second and final Punic War. But without control of the Mediterranean islands, the Romans could fire upon us with impunity and limit our movements. And we can't even expect support from the south, where the war to finish off Saladin has begun. The first city falls quickly, but forces have to be split up immediately thereafter, sending one along with a frigate to take the Bab el-Mandab and the other to resecure the Jebel Barka to assist the European front, as they reheal and re-advance on the rest of France. With their defenses and proximity of Paris to German reinforcements, this stretch of land will surely inflict immense casualties. But soon enough, they would have support from the sea, as the Navy had taken Sicily thanks to superior firepower. Support from reinforcements theoretically flooding into Europe thanks to the retaking of Jebel Barka, despite not knowing whether a double jeopardy could occur. I'm not going to question that, as this all leads to the taking of Nantes before disaster strikes. With such a large disparity in numbers and now a debuff to combat strength, new troops had to be recruited quickly. In total, we would need an army to advance through Europe while the second army pushes through Spain and a fourth to attack across the Silk Road. You know, maybe we should be cautious and make peace. No. If they want to fight, they'll fucking get one. Can I nuke him yet? Now in a war on 4 different fronts, the first and foremost task is stabilizing the lines. The defenses hold the Germans up in the north, but it's only a matter of time until the age of migration takes hold. Meanwhile, the advance on Amsterdam is weakened as detachments are needed to fight off the British landings. Rome is going well though, with our monstrous navy as their last stronghold of Sardinia falls. But that's about the extent our navy can support Europe without opening up a 5th front. Something anyone who doesn't sound like they're choking on frogs when they speak dreads. But in a stunning display of timing, as the Germans pushed through, the Macedonians secured Alsace-Lorraine, limiting Gaul's defense of Amsterdam and forcing Germany to pull back due to their mainland being under threat. But between Amsterdam, the Arabian holdout, and Germany, we don't have the numbers to deal with all fronts at the same time. To make up for our lack of numbers, we need stronger tactics, a more centralized command structure, corps and fleets to be exact. These corps help us advance, especially when the fleet aids the First Army in their invasion of Egypt, a critical choke point into Africa. If we can't take Ra-Kedet, then we can't invade Africa and all hope is lost. But while that invasion is preparing, Amsterdam will prove a fortress, with both Scotland and Norway's massive militaries and navies. So how do we beat all 3 allies that make up for each other's weaknesses? Simple, peace out the other 2 and storm Amsterdam. Meanwhile, in Arabia, the last stronghold of Saladin is taken, meaning much needed reinforcements will arrive in Africa soon enough. A campaign campaign that can finally get started now that we have command of the seas and secure the vital Suez. But now, after taking Arabia, most of Europe, and previous strongholds that proved impenetrable thanks to our navy, we are finally seeing progress as our leader can finally be referred to as Alexander the Good. And with the Third Army nearing completion, a Fourth Army getting started on the Eastern Front, and the new substance, oil, being mass-produced, things are looking up. If only it wasn't past turn 100 and we barely controlled 4% of the world's landmass. This is bad. But why do we need to win by turn 250? Such an unrealistic goal that would require every ounce of technical ability to even have a puncher's chance of obtaining. Why not go past turn 250 and accomplish the already incredible task of taking out the entire world? If only I could. You see, this isn't the first time I've played this exact same challenge. In fact, on my previous run, I'd conquered all of Europe, Asia, and Africa at around turn 220. And that is when I got the dreaded unhandled exception. No removing mods, new save files, nor DXL 11 could handle this exception, and so I needed to find a way to win before turn 250, which I'm assuming is the cutoff point with no mods and lowered graphics, or else this entire run gets lost to the sands of time. So I somehow have to find a way to take out Africa, Europe, and Asia by about 220, or else I won't be able to finish off the New World. The New what? But being so drained, I don't even know if this is possible. Maybe Alexander the Good is good enough. After all, who needs the whole world? But then I realized something. The entire early game was spent trying to survive, to not die, and we did. After that, we needed a navy to blast past choke points, and after that we picked up the pace. Could it be that technology is the answer? After all, we are the most advanced nation on Earth thanks to accepting new ideas into our empire. Maybe it is worth a shot. Maybe we even get a new technology that allows us to take 4 to 5 cities in a single turn. But would that be enough? Well, there's only one way to find out. It's time to take off the gloves. We have less than 100 turns to get to the Americas. We'll need to upgrade our troops, use the Navy to secure the Mediterranean, and take Hamburg to hand off the Second Army's duties to the newly produced Third, while the Fourth takes over India. But will the Fourth be ready in time? Nonetheless, it's time to launch 3 out of our 4 assaults into Africa, Spain, and Germany. Our new battleships and ironclads blitz colonial possessions with support from the Second Army, which has been redirected after taking Hamburg. But our oil stockpiles are beginning to run out. This is where the pride of Macedon, the first army whose skills proved as sweet as the limitless oil Egypt's African possessions gave us. With this massive influx, the Second Army blasts past northern Spain, with the Navy taking all the ports in quick succession. The entirety of mainland Europe is about to be ours, especially with the Third Army taking Berlin, leaving only the flat Eurasian steppe to move through, as well as the northern islands that the fleet will secure after Iberia. But it has turned into a slog. Even with our firepower, they have walls and our artillery can't punch through as fast. To speed up the advance, we've begun testing new aerial bombardment techniques, but that will take a while to manifest. For now, we begin construction of a second navy to deal with Nubia, and in future support the Fourth Army's efforts in invading Asia. But our biggest problem came after Spain's collapse, as the mighty Portuguese army took command of the coalition. They decided the battle would take place outside Gibraltar, as our firepower was up against their numerous armada. He has no battleships? Is he stupid? He'll never punch through our armor. When the ship in front of you dies, the next one climbs on top of its corpse. A naval disaster, but not insurmountable. The survivors of the disastrous First Battle of Gibraltar are now seasoned veterans, and after breaking through, opt to launch a new operation, single file. But as we struggle on the seas, it's the vast steppes of Europe, Asia, and Africa that we need to worry about. The Fourth Army is finally ready, launching a massive offensive into the technologically inferior Persians with the aid of the Second Navy, who isn't needed in Africa as the First Army is blitzing through. Securing massive quantities of oil, which enables the Third Army to blitzkrieg Barbarossa without the fear of dwindling reserves, as each army is aiding each other indirectly in their combined advances. Yeah, looking good, but, maybe we should slow down. This is great! Why didn't Hitler just take the Middle East for oil? Is he stupid? But now we have to break through the Portuguese blockade. It's time for Operation Single File. Using the Strait of Gibraltar, we ensure no more than a few ships can ram into our advanced ironclads. But most importantly, they'll be stuck in a chicken chute for our battleships. With that, we cripple their navy, giving our land army enough fire support to take out the mainland cities, shattering the heart of their empire, leading to the securing of the peninsula and eventually all of Portugal. And with that, we have victory in Europe, our first full continent, now controlling about 10% of the world's landmass, doubling our previous amount. And with that decisive victory, the Second Army can safely transit over to Africa. Hey, wait a minute, who's that? He won't be able to take this. You guys need help? No, you set out for England. And with that, it's time for the decisive naval battle off the shores of England. This will decide the future of not only the British Isles, but potentially the entire world. But despite their massive disadvantage, the English still have something: hope. For their families, for a better future. And with that, despite all odds, they set out to do the impossible. Oh, heavens! Beat that Greek homo and you'll be free from your crimes! That is an awful British accent, what the But who would come out on top?
Eeny, meeny, miny, here goes!
So yeah, they have the world's first submarine force. And with that, the Macedonians have complete control of about 14% of the world's landmass. But the biggest landmass still not under control is the massive plains of Siberia. But how would we take the city of St. Petersburg when it has already been years of a grueling siege? Well, you see, it's very difficult to defend a city when volleys of hundreds of rockets are being launched at your location at terminal velocity every minute. But the battle wasn't over yet. We're coming, Peter, hold on! The battle was over now. With Russia left wide open, we can now move into the Second Army in Western Africa, who has a lot of catching up to do and malaria to contract. But Mali's empire is as fat as their leader, who no doubt parallel parks in the shower. And he was prepared. With massive arrays of forts on the border, they can hold the line even with a tech disadvantage. If they were manned, that is. But with their massive city defenses, how would we possibly take their cities? With field cannons. Come now, men, fear not. Charge at the enemy. You think it was the brightly colored uniforms? But on the home front, something changed that had the potential to sink this campaign. And due to his mistake of splitting a potato with Bucephalus a few years ago, everyone is looking at Alexander with a weary eye. He needs to act quick, and in order to keep his position as leader, he has to do whatever it takes. Look! He's one of us! And now it's time for the Battle of Britain, but with their islands separating our armies from the mainland, how do we defeat them? By blowing up their cities from very far away. But a unique problem presented itself when we eliminated their defenses. Why aren't you taking the city? You see, sir, we don't have any melee units. It's the modern age, there are no melee units. Sir, there are laws in war, and while I don't follow most of them, this is where I draw the line. But there is only so far bombard infantry tactics this Renaissance-era army can take us. Persia's far behind technologically, sure, but Chandragupta won't fall this easily with his science numbers. Similarly, the African campaign simply doesn't have enough units to sustain a continued offensive as the veteran armies getting Napoleon and Russia'd. Even with the aid of the Second Army, who'll hopefully meet up with them for the first time since Constantinople back when Suleiman was our main adversary, it still won't be enough for this giant continent. This move of fighting the entire world for no particular reason leaves us in the same position as the last guy who tried to do so. And with no trading partners, we were running out of resources fast. But all of that was about to change. Our aerodromes have begun improving bomber fleets in numbers. This is our trump card, and with the rest of the world ill-prepared to defend from the skies. China? Yes, General. Set out for China. Europe, Africa, Asia. All captured or on the verge of, as we can smell victory. But with our massive advantage, there's still a whole new world we need to take. A world just as advanced as ours, with firepower and aircraft that will be the final challenge for Alexander, the now great. But with it being well past where the game crashed previously, it could stop at any moment. We need to defeat our peer technological rivals, and fast. On turn 220, 1500 AD, the citizens of Panama woke up to battleship fire and planes bombarding them from the ocean. Colombia's military strength was vast, and even their AT squads caused problems for our armor. But that strength was as deceptive as Saddam's, as we ended up obliterating their military from the skies. Now, with total land, sea, and air superiority, the Macedonians stormed the beaches, obliterating Colombia, the Incans, and Brazil in short order, as the American campaign was going well, but there was, as always, a problem. The Mapuche had heavily fortified their cities with urban defenses. Paired with their mountainous terrain and well-equipped army, it would take multiple turns just to position our forces, while they used guerrilla tactics to slow us down. It didn't matter for the home front, as a fascist government was in charge, so no elections, but as for the battlefield situation, we still had a trick up our sleeve. By splitting our forces into two, we can begin advancing up America's soft underbelly, but you might be asking, what about the Mapuche? Half of your forces and 2/3 of your air force leaving for the second front will only exacerbate the problem. But as strong as they are, even with all our rocket artillery raining fire down south, there was still a special trick up our sleeves that would end this war for good. Well, we could get a head start on the final continent not under our control. All of this was occurring while the last vestiges of free East Asia were fighting for their survival. Sorry, force of habit. No, that works. In North America, the Mayans and Aztecs were too fractured to stand up to our air force, but the last major obstacle was the new American alliance. With Roosevelt possessing aircraft and the others not too far behind with their own, they slowed down our advance considerably. This slog was turning out to be hopeless, and with no time left, Alex was getting frantic. MacArthur, I need you up north. How long till you... You thinking what I'm thinking? With every city nuked and victory almost assured, Alexander the Phoenix King was crowned as he proclaimed While we may have failed in our goal and lay defeated, we still won the moral victory in our hearts, as it took Sid Meier himself to stop our advance. Perhaps it was the God mod maxing out my negative karma score. Maybe the carnage and destruction that would make Genghis look like a Nobel Peace Prize candidate was to blame. But most importantly, the hero of our story, Alexander, after stopping at nothing short of world domination, wept, as there were no more worlds left to conquer. But as for me, well, I may have been beaten, sure, but I still haven't been defeated, and I will have my revenge.